Hello everybody, and welcome to Whiz, your family-friendly podcast where we discuss D&D Onslaught, Dice Masters, Heroclix, and the other entertaining games made by WizKids. I'm WizDad, your uncommon motorcycle for your figure that has no move and attack. I will be your guide for navigating the competitive and casual scenes of the WizKids Triforce of gaming. It's Heroclix Friday, and we begin today our Wheels of Vengeance set review. Yes, thank you. But before we get too excited, we do have something to discuss in the WizKids Progress Report. What else did you expect?
Kowalski, Progress Report.
Not much has changed for the rest of the year as far as Heroclix goes, which is to be expected. We're in the off season. Remember, things work in advance. It's been, we only have a month and a half, well, 2 months, I guess, until the end of the year. So nothing really is going to change on that front. Maybe some dates are going to move around on when certain things come out, because we've still got some Iconics and OP kits to come out. But let's talk a little bit about 2024, because some things have moved around and have been announced. And quarter one for 2024, when off-season is over, we're now back into the kind of preseason, the beginning of the Heroclix season. Things are ramping up pretty quickly. So currently slated is we have the Colossal Kong is in January, as is the Sherlock Holmes for January for the Iconics line. I feel like that isn't how it was before. I believe they had spread them out and was doing one Iconics per month. I feel like Colossal Kong was December at some point, but it got pushed to January, so there you go. The Cry for Blood monthly OP kit, I think, was also set for December or something, but maybe it's always been in January. Either way, guess what? That's in January. And that's kind of going to be it for January, just like period. January really only has Colossal Kong, Sherlock Holmes, and the Cry for Blood monthly OP kit. February is when things get interesting. Now keep in mind, a set releases in a month, but releases in a specific month, but the pre-release is typically 2 weeks before. The way that they have things structured, it would not surprise me if Next Phase, which is Disney Plus Next Phase, would not surprise me if that is scheduled for the beginning of February, and that means the end of January is a pre-release. Because right now they have listed, first off, Gotham Villains monthly OP kit. You have a Harley Quinn, Roses for Red. That's the Iconics, Harley and Poison Ivy Iconics for like around Valentine's Day. But then they have Marvel Studios Next Phase, Booster Brick, the Release Day Kit, the Release Chase Booster, and then they also have these two things they're calling Pizza Parties. They did come out this past week and talk about the Pizza Parties. It's done up in a very cool looking box that kind of looks like it's about the shape of, I'm guessing it's the shape of the Wheels of Vengeance boxes, like the rectangle, not quite a cube, but more of a rectangle type box. Or actually, I guess it kind of looks like just literally a cube. There's going to be 2 of them. Now, it does state in here, I think you can order them, so I don't think it's a web exclusive, but keep an eye on those just to make sure. There is 2 versions. There's basically the Kate Bishop version and the She-Hulk version. The She-Hulk version comes with an LE She-Hulk and LE Hulk, 2 team-up cards, one for She-Hulk, one for Hulk, 1 bystander, and then 1 pizza object, whatever that means. And then the Kate Bishop one has 1 LE Kate Bishop and 1 LE, as you guessed it, Lucky the dog. 2 team-up cards, 1 for Kate, 1 for Lucky. All right. 1 bystander and 1 pizza object. The boxes look pretty sweet. They look pretty interesting. Kind of just looking at the artwork. Yeah, one is just based off of, obviously, She-Hulk. The other one is based off of Kate Bishop. I don't know what else to say. Now, there is still a play-at-home kit with, I believe, She-Hulk still the one in the play-at-home kit. Let's see. Play at home kit. Let's see. Yeah, play at home kit, She-Hulk. So there you go. We're getting a ton of She-Hulk. Maybe there's not many in the set. She is on the front of the booster. So take that how you will. But at that point, we're not done. And this is why I'm thinking more of the set is going to be released at the beginning of February, because they do currently have the next Marvel set, which is Wolverine and Deadpool, which we know is like a duo-based set, is scheduled for March. So it makes more sense for that to be next phase is the beginning of February, and Deadpool Wolverine is more of like an end of March type of thing. So that way they're spaced out. There's over a month in between them, but yet everything still falls into quarter one, so it'll count for quarter one sales, something like that. We also get Young Justice and then the Peacemaker on the wings of Eagly in March as well. So quarter one looks great. Really, it's going to be kind of February and March, but I anticipate, once again, pre-release is going to be the end of January, which spells great for Champion Clicks, because Champion Clicks does fall into the end of January. I've talked about it a little bit. Champion Clicks, which is made by David Newmark, is kind of a new premiere event. This is its third year coming up. I went last year. I might be going this year. Like I'm leaning towards yes, but it depends on finances, obviously. It's in Orlando. It's a lot more affordable this to go around, but it's definitely a bigger event. Probably one of the best, if not the best, player run type tournament. Probably like a small step down from like the Rock Cup / Heroclix for Huntingtons, because obviously that has, some Whiz Kids related. That's for charity. That's a bunch of stuff to it. But Champion Clicks, if you can go, I recommend it. Last year when they did it, Batman Team Up pre-release was around the same time. And because of that, they were able to kind of secure a bunch of boosters. They bought extra ones, bought a bunch of people out. And so they were able to do the, like I've mentioned, for pre-releases, which is great, a full brick BRs. And so you just sit a brick down, open it, and the prizing is just the extra boosters and what you get. So I'm hoping, especially for Mr. Newmark, I'm hoping this works out to be the same case for next phase, because that would be awesome to be able to have pre-release for next phase, have it at Champion Clicks. Goodness knows, it would be a ton of fun just to go to play in those BRs and then play in like a team event or something. So that's what we got around the corner. Off season once again. It's a little slow, but hey, it's not too slow because we are in the thick of Wheels of Vengeance pre-release, so let's not jump the gun yet. Today in Fishing with WizDad, what we're going to do is we're going to start our set review, where I'm going to look at all the figures in the new set of Wheels of Vengeance, talk about them from a pulp and modern perspective, and casual, and kind of just go through each one and talk about what I think of the figure, whether I think it falls into pulp or modern or casual, and whether you should be picking it up at your pre-release. Today's episode, we are going to be going through the commons, uncommons, and rares, because goodness knows I don't want you to have to listen to a 3-hour episode of me going through all the pieces. So today, commons, uncommons, and rares. We'll go through the whole CUR, so you know what pieces you need to be picking up at your pre-release, whether you need to try to hand pick them or buy a CUR, which you can do. Plenty of people buy a bunch of bricks and do sell the extra commons and uncommons and rares. So without further ado, let's jump into Fishing with WizDad.
Get your gear, little man. We're going fishing. And I mean now.
So I know I think it was last week, maybe the week before, I did kind of a quick overview of some of the pieces in Wheels of Vengeance. Some of the pieces you might want to pick up going into your pre-release. And so this set review is going to be a bigger deep dive into each individual character. That way you can kind of have your checklist at home and say, okay, which ones do I want to get? Which ones do I not care to pick up? Maybe you're not buying any of the sealed product. You're only going singles, which perfectly is a perfectly fine way of purchasing Heroclix. It's not as fun, but potentially more economical. So we're going to break down, like I said today, the commons, uncommons, and rares. There's definitely some good ones out of all three. And I'm going to take a good look at the Pulp perspective, because Pulp and Modern are both reeling from the aftermath of rotation. Losing so many figures, you're left with so few that it's almost impossible for Wheels of Vengeance to not make an impact at this point. With power creep, with the lack of characters, any of these figures are, all of these figures are welcome, is what I should say. So let's kick things off with the 001 Ghost Rider. 55 points, 7 clicks, so that's in the golden ratio of 10 points per click, which if it's below that, if it's, more points for less clicks, it's got to do something fancy. This one's a perfectly fine Ghost Rider. I don't know if you're really reaching for it as a Pulp figure. It has Giant Reach 3, Precision Strike, Quake. Quake, Precision Strike, Giant Reach is really good. The fact that you can, especially with Giant Reach 3, so charging for 4, being able to hit someone 3 away, but also quaking and Precision Strike, and he's got Exploit on there as well. 55 points. He could potentially see Pulp play. Definitely in BRs. He's going to be really good in BRs. He also improved targeting characters. So this is definitely not a modern piece, because just the toughness and Mystics isn't enough to kind of protect him. But if you're in BRs and you're pulling figures, you probably hope you get one of these, because it deals a lot of damage to a lot of characters. Pulp might have some room for it, because he does have some interesting keywords. Really, Monster Mystical is the main ones. The others, which is Champions, Heroes for Hire, Legion of Monsters, Marvel Knights, and Midnight Suns, is okay. But you know what? I don't mind this Ghost Rider. 55 points for what he does is good. So I could see you maybe reaching for him in Pulp. Maybe. But he feels more of a casual piece, a Battle Royale all-star for what he brings. But yeah, for an 001 figure, which are typically kind of lackluster, they've done a really good job. Usually 001s are kind of just meh, nothing exciting about them. Next we have Robbie Reyes at 002. He's got Avengers, Mystical, and Vehicle. 40 points and 20 points. He's got a special damage power on all his clicks, Perplex, but only to modify speed. When Robbie Reyes uses it to target a character with the Vehicle keyword, he may instead modify speed +2, and until your next turn, the targeted character has Mystics. That's interesting. I don't know if it's enough. I could see maybe if Vehicle takes off in Pulp, which it could, you might slide him on the team for 20 points. If you've got a taxi that you want to be able to, a taxi with Vehicle, like I believe Cyborgman has Vehicle, funny enough. If you want to slide him on a team, that would work. Now, it works for him as well, funny enough, because it says to use a target character with Vehicle keyword, and he has it. So he can boost himself up to a 10, but he has no way of being a taxi. He can, technically, his charge is 6 speed, so 3 movement charge, but with that Perplex up by 2, that turns it into a 5 movement charge. That's okay. I don't think he gets really played. I could see him maybe at 20 points on a Pulp team where you really need that extra 2 speed and Mystics for what it's worth to make your taxi be able to go across the map. That's really the only, random case I could see him being used. Blade at 85 and 45. He's got traded Super Senses Willpower. 85 points, Hypersonic Blades, that Super Senses, Shape Change, Team Player. That's not bad. That's really not, What's interesting is, you look at these figures, they're inherently not bad. Hypersonic is great. Those colors on the dial, the powers they have, aren't bad. It's just not necessarily good enough. I don't think this figure's good enough for Pulp, probably definitely not good enough for Modern. But if you're playing casually, you're playing in a BR, him at 85 points is great. He's going to struggle to go down. And he's got great keywords. So he's good for casual and BR play. Werewolves. So werewolves are a little bit interesting. So they first introduced the moon trait. I've talked about all the generics before. But now we have more characters that kind of talk about them. So the moon trait, harvest or blood at the beginning of your turn, roll d6 for all friendly characters with the moon trait. Werewolf can use the resulting effect until your next turn. You roll 1 through 4, shape change, 5 through 6, modify attack +1 and flurry. Werewolves are definitely not bad. They're probably one of those generics that you would prefer to generate, either by one of the later werewolf figures or by Capwolf. I think could bring 3 in on his own. You really want to hit that 5 or 6 at the right time to be able to do that +1 attack and flurry. But, on their own, for 15 points, they're not bad. Majority of the time, they probably have shape change. But, 30 points, kind of like a goon situation here. I don't know if I want to pay up. 30 points for 5 clicks isn't bad, but with only having willpower, and probably when you don't need to attack, maybe when they're double token, that's when you roll the modify +1 attack and flurry. That would be my luck. So, werewolves are perfectly fine. Once again, if they're generics, you probably want multiple because, you're going to use them in certain cases. They might have a case in Pulp if you need to fit some more space on there for an animal team or a mystical team. But there are probably better options. Probably a goon is better at 15 than a werewolf, for sure. But depending on theme, right? Howard the Duck at 30, I think, is interesting. Maybe. He's tiny. He's got perplex, precision strike, stealth, combat reflexes, team player. Meh. He's got traded range, combat expert, prob control, but only to target himself. So he can get himself up to a 12 for 2, but no move and attack. You're probably passing on Howard the Duck. Sorry. Zombie, I've talked about it before. 20 points. When they're KO'd, they generate a grave hindering terrain marker. That's great. You could choose 3 different lines. They've got 3 clicks for each one. One is sidestep and power. That's probably its most played spot, unless you generate these. But if you're playing it from the beginning, you're probably going for the empower sidestep. It's got Underworld TA, so that's really where I see it being used most, is sliding this character on maybe a monster mystical team for Pulp, so that way you do have that Underworld TA to pass around to have a taxi. In the event you don't want to go a goon, right? You could argue a goon. Definitely goons are probably better, but if you want the empower and you want it to have an extra click, zombies are perfectly fine. Mummy is interesting, I guess. Invincible. It's got a special defense power. Invincible. Mummy can't be healed or be chosen for Mastermind. That's because it's 30 points for 6 clicks. Only a 16 defense. It gives me Solomon Grundy vibes of it sidesteps and kind of shambles forward and really doesn't do anything. So you're probably passing on this figure. I will say, if you face a team that doesn't have a lot of outwit and you've got like 10 of these, that's going to be scary, right? Like, you'd have to go through a lot of clicks to get through all of these with that invincible. So, interesting piece, but probably more casual. Fire Demon at 45. Trait once per turn when an opposing character deals damage to Fire Demon. If that damage wasn't from an attack, after resolutions, deal that opposing character 1 penetrating damage. So effectively, it also has mystical. It's effectively, or mystics, I should say. It also has the mystical keyword. Basically, any damage that it takes at this point by an opposing character, you deal 1 penetrating. Because either if it's from an attack, they get hit by mystics, or if it's by just poison or something, they get hit by the 5 fire with fire. So that's neat. 45 points for 6 clicks isn't bad, but it's kind of slow. 45 points is a lot, so you're probably not reaching for this for Pulp. Definitely not Modern. It's a casual or BR type piece. Vampires, WizKids just likes making vampires, and they're always kind of meh. This vampire doesn't have a move and attack, which I get it. I'm about to talk about some pieces in the uncommons that mitigate that. But he's 25 points, and he starts on click 3. He gets Steel Energy, and he can heal up basically up to click 1, which has Flurry, 11 Precision Strike, 4 damage. He has Shape Change the whole dial, Toughness the whole dial. It's not bad. Maybe with the equipment we're about to talk about, there might be something there. Because 25 points and being able to heal up pretty quickly would be nice. But otherwise, no. This is a table piece, a casual piece. Filling in for a BR. Like, this is probably one of the last figures you get in the booster that gets passed back to you in a BR. Up next, we've got 010 Night Nurse. Night Nurse is probably one of the first pieces in commons, or in the set, I should say, that I feel comfortable saying it's probably going to be in modern, like it's a meta potential. 20 points, 4 clicks. Stealth, defend, support, a special damage power. Support. Adjacent friendly characters that share a keyword with Night Nurse can reduce penetrating damage. That's big. Reducing penetrating damage, we wish was on every tentpole. There's so much Pensai out there. There's so much Precision Strike, even though Precision Strike we still get around it, but there's so much exploit. Night Nurse is great. Now, she only has Defenders, Heroes for Hire, Marvel Knights, and Scientists, so she has Scientists, which gets her on a lot of teams. You could also keyword cheat her a little bit. Because of Scientists, like I mentioned in my Gotham City Underworld thing, Scientist is one of the keywords Harley could bring on. I don't think she's necessarily a good fit for GCU because they don't really have a lot of reducers. They are a lot more dependent on like rollouts, super senses, stuff like that, using Mastermind to Kite Man. So she's not the best for that. But other keyword cheating or, Defenders, Heroes for Hire, Marvel Knights, or just a Scientist theme team, she could be very good. Being able to dish out defend for 18 and a support is just great on its own for 20 points. But also giving the ability to reduce penetrating damage is massive. So if there's a way to kind of give her the right keywords, get her on the right team, find the right pieces that share a keyword with her, she's going to be great in Modern. I think she's going to be great for sure in Pulp because, Pulp still does have Blue Marvel. Now, Blue Marvel, let me look at him again. He's still one of the best pieces. I think he would be even better. Like, I'm thinking more at 50-point Blue Marvel. Because 50-point Blue Marvel has the Impervious on click 6. That's when he starts. And being able to just plain out not reduce that. Like, not being able to go through it. Like, not being able to Pensai him down. That's huge. Like, that's really big. You've got other pieces out here that I think are going to be pretty big that we'll get to later in the set. But a lot of the Doom chases, or not Doom chases, I saw Doom Supreme. A lot of the Masters of Evil chases, like Doom Supreme has Scientist, Black Skull, Kid Thanos, Ghost Goblin, Iron Inquisitor has Scientist. So being able to mastermind to him, well, he can already reduce penetrating, so I guess that's a moot point there. Either way, it is something very unique that she does that you just need to note about it. A key piece, if you really want to think about it, Prime Spider-Man is still huge. He has Super Senses Impervious. He's a Scientist. So now they have to waste and outwit. Now I know, they can outwit him. Okay, big deal. Well, no, he has Protected Outwit. So they have to waste their outwit instead of outwitting one of his attack powers on outwitting Night Nurse, which might not be possible because she does have stealth and stuff like that. So just something to consider. Now we're up to 011 Yeti. 45 points. Not really that great. 45 points is a lot. I know it's under the golden ratio, but he just doesn't do enough. He's got Blades Claw Swing, Super Strength. Only 17 defense. He's a giant, so much easier to target. I know he can modify his defense +1 for each action token, and that's a trait, so you can't just outwit that. But you know what? Being giant means he's probably not going to really have a lot of action tokens on him. He's probably going to get that down pretty quickly. So definitely a casual tabletop, kitchen table type piece. The only other piece, the last piece for the commons is 012 Frenchie. He's probably modern piece, definitely pulp piece. Frenchie's only 25 points. At the beginning of the game, you may choose a friendly character with the vehicle keyword that has not been chosen by another Frenchie. If you do, turn Frenchie to any click and place him on the chosen character's card. This game, that character can use the powers displayed on Frenchie's dial, and when a chosen character is KO'd, place Frenchie into the square that the character last occupied on click 1. So he is like a possessor of olden times, where he just kind of dishes out the powers that he has. He has only 3 clicks, but are they a doozy? You've got click 1, which has stealth, energy explosion, and perplex, so super solid. Second click is precision strike, willpower, and enhancement. All right. And then the third click is sidestep and close combat expert. So being able to hand those out to someone with the vehicle keyword is nice. I mean, the only downside is that, they didn't really hand out the vehicle keyword much. Like, the last time they used it was back in like Avengers Infinity or the Batmobile. We have Cyborgman who has it in Notorious, but then it's only from this set. So if you're looking at it from a pulp standpoint, while we're about to get to some rares and some uncommons, maybe there's something we need to consider. Frenchie being able to give out a sidestep and close combat expert, is that worth 25 points? Modern, maybe. We're going to get to some figures that for 15 points give out powers. But he does give out 3 powers for, 2 of the clicks. Sidestep and close combat expert are pretty powerful on their own. But being able to give out a stealth, energy explosion, and perplex is pretty good. And also just giving willpower to someone is good as well. So definitely keep an eye on Frenchie. There are some vehicle keyworded characters that might enjoy having Frenchie. Now we're into the uncommons. We've got Nightmare 013 or 013 Nightmare. He's got 115 and a 55 point click. This is okay. He has no move and attack, but once again, you have to consider that you can give him a move and attack for 15 points. He has a trait: incapacitate. Opposing characters within range that have 2 action tokens can't have their action tokens removed except by clearing. Sure, I guess. And then he has mind control and stealth. He has triple target, 13 attack if you play him at 115. You probably do not play him at 115, and you probably don't play him at 55. Nightmare's not that great in my books. I might be wrong. He's just too overcosted at 115 to play him in Modern or Pulp, and then he doesn't do enough at 55. He's under the golden ratio of 10 points per click. That you probably pass on Nightmare. He's more of a casual piece. Now we have another Robbie Reyes. This one's 014. It's him and his actual Ghost Rider, outfit. He has Spirit of Vengeance. He's 75 points. When Robbie Reyes attacks an opposing characters that took damage from Mystic since your last turn, he deals penetrating damage. If the friendly character that dealt damage from Mystics also had this trait, Robbie Reyes increases damage dealt by +1 during that attack. It's an interesting trait. It's one I don't know if you could really count on, because that relies on a lot of character. Like, you can't rely on the damage part. You can't really rely on someone, your opponent having to attack a mystical character, a Mystics character, for Robbie to deal penetrating. You kind of just want him to deal penetrating anyway. He does have a special damage power, Perplex, unique modifier. When he uses Perplex, if the target shares at least 2 keywords with Robbie, you may modify the chosen combat value by plus or minus 2 instead. 75 points, 6 clicks, under the golden ratio, but he does have hypersonic quake, that perplex. But then he's got ESD. I don't like ESD on my hypersonic figures. If my character's hypersonicking, I want a little bit more oomph to it. So Robbie is probably getting the pass. He does have good keywords: Avengers, Fantastic Four, Shield, Wakanda, Monster, Mystical. So if you're building those keywords, sure, he can go on them, but definitely not in Modern, probably not in Pulp. Modred the Mystic, I think, is interesting. 75 points. Opposing characters' combat values, except range, can't be modified when attacking Modred the Mystic or being attacked by Modred the Mystic. Cool. Then he has free. Deal Modred the Mystic 1 unavoidable damage. Modifies attack and damage plus 1 this turn. That's very interesting. He's got Mystics. He's, like I said, 7 clicks for 75, so a little under the golden ratio, but that's maybe acceptable. He doesn't have any reducers. Top click is running shot, Pensai, ESD, an enhancement. But then if you free action give him that unavoidable, at least he falls onto another running shot. But this time, energy explosion, super senses, and prob. But he goes from an 11 attack, you take that one unavoidable, he drops down to a 10. So like, that plus 1 attack just gets him back to where you were. You're basically taking 1 damage to gain 1 damage. So, I'm not really feeling it. Now, 3 movement running shot with 5 range, that is half the map. On a small map, we're getting down to where we almost only have small maps. There's still big ones, but something to note. But you probably are passing a Modred the Mystic. But, maybe something there with Pulp, but probably not, in my opinion. Manwolf at 16. Spider-Man Family, Animal Cosmic, Monster Police, 60 points, only 5 clicks. He has the Moon trait we talked about before, Harvest or Blood. That's the shape change, modify attack plus 1 and flurry, like the werewolves have. He has traded Plasticity Stealth, and he has free place Manwolf and a square of hidden terrain within 4 squares in line of fire. That is a good trait. We've seen other characters have that trait, and it's very solid. Like, it's definitely a useful trait. I don't think it's enough, though, to propel him up there. With Pensai, you just have to hit him for 5 damage and he's dead. If he was cheaper, I hate saying this, if he was a little cheaper, maybe. But 60 points is a lot to give up for what he offers. Elsa Bloodstone, great to see Elsa Bloodstone back. 65 points, 7 clicks, so great ratio there. When an opposing character that hit Elsa Bloodstone this turn would heal 1 or more clicks, deal them 1 unavoidable damage instead. Safeguard Mystics, so that's great. That's real great. Safeguard's Mystic is also great. She has Precision Strike. When Elsa Bloodstone attacks, opposing characters with monster or mystical keywords can't use Mastermind or Shape Change. Also great. And at first glance, you're looking at her and you're saying, okay, 12 for 4, awesome. 12 for 4 Precision Strike, great. No move and attack. Well, we're almost there, folks. But we have ways of equipping move and attack now for pretty cheap. That's not bad. The only negative thing about her is that she's just really missing defensive capabilities. Only having toughness is bad. Having stealth helps, sure. But she's kind of I won't say glass cannon because she does have 7 clicks. But you knock her down to click 4, 5, 6, 7. She loses some oomph very quickly. I think there's potential there with Pulp. Especially if especially if monster or mystical keywords really take off, then she definitely will see play, because being able to go through Mastermind and Shape Change, pretty clutch. But otherwise, definitely not in Modern. Simon Garth, 50 points, 6 clicks. Adjacent opposing characters can use Mind Control. but only to target Simon Garth. If they do, after resolution, Simon Garth can use Battle Fury until your next turn. Okay. When Simon Garth would KO, generate a grave hindering terrain marker. Okay. I honestly don't really see the point of this character. I see it may fit the theme. It's another reason to be able to use the zombie sculpt. But there's nothing here for this character. Like, adjacent opposing characters can use mind control. Why? Why would that be a thing? Like, why? I understand it's thematic, but this figure doesn't. Definitely won't see modern or like. I don't even know if I would play this character casually because it's just not a great fit. Kind of a weird piece, a standout weird piece. Incantu is 60 points. Sidestep if Incantu has no action tokens, he can sidestep twice. Very cool. And then he's got kind of that deep dial that the mummies have. Invincible willpower. Incantu can't be healed or chosen for mastermind. And protected outwit. 8 clicks for 60 points is great. That sidestep, he potentially has a double sidestep. Only a 10 attack, but it's with super strength. 4 damage. You know, I don't hate it. It's not for modern. It's very, very borderline for pulp. Very borderline. There's probably a lot better pieces. But if you need a meat shield, you could do worse. Because you can't outwit that invincible. Sure, you could pulse wave him, but you're dealing him 1. Whoop-de-doo. So if you really need a meat stick for 60 points, there's Incanto for you. Werewolf by Night. He has the Harvest or Blood, the moon trait from all the werewolves. 80 points, 50 points. Neither of them are in the golden ratio. Both of them are more expensive. He does have the leadership, which when he succeeds, you may move a friendly character with the monster keyword 1 square. So if he uses leadership and wins, gets it, they can move 1 square, neat. If he's 80 points, he can move any number of friendly characters with the monster keyword 1 square. It's not that good, but it is noteworthy. And what I mean by that is I always try to take a mental note when I'm going through these set reviews, looking at different figures. I do a mental note of something that has a unique ability. I understand it's tied to leadership, so that means it's probably out for pulp. But you can increase leadership odds in modern with, I believe, with a tarot card. There's some things with leadership that would make it better. You don't want to have to rely on this trait. But if we get some characters that do some things whenever they move, like I'm thinking Hulk off the top of my head, which I don't know if it'll work with that. You never know, right? Like you never know. I'm pretty sure something like Dark Phoenix doesn't have a monster, and even still, it probably doesn't work. Probably with how you're thinking, if anyone else is thinking it at home as well. Yeah, Dark Phoenix does not have monster, and it's a big move action. But either way, something to think about. But no, with his points and what he offers, he doesn't offer enough, in my opinion. We have Blackout at 80 points. Blackout is hypersonic. Interesting. Traded Poison, Smoke Cloud, Stealth. Smoke Cloud is free, but minimum range value of 1. That's weird. Oh, because he has no range. That explains it. Damage dealt to opposing characters occupying Blackout Smoke terrain marker is penetrating. Okay. He has to be adjacent, though. But being able to kind of dish out penetrating damage just by freely putting out a smoke marker is interesting. He has special damage power, Mastermind, Super Senses, Toughness. It's near the end of his dial. It's a little overcosted at 80 points. Probably not a little. It's massively overcosted. He's got a ton of powers. You know, he's a 12 for 4. Hypersonic for 7. Because he's got close combat X. But he's just a little too easy to kill. If you could just deal him 5 penetrating, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 penetrating somehow, then he's cooked. He's done. And that's 80 points to give up. Even if you get him down to his lower clicks with the Mastermind, Super Sense, Toughness, that whole power could be outwitted. And that's even more scary. So he's not bad, but he's just not really that good, in my opinion. At least for Modern and Pulp. Once again, anything like this could be played in a BR or a casual event. Now we're getting to our first double bases. They're not really called peanut bases because they don't have the little squeeze to make them look like a peanut anymore. I've heard some people call them Twinkie bases because they look like Twinkies, so I'm gonna roll with that. Twinkie bases. You've got Ghost Rider. Who would have thunk at 0.22? 95 points, 7 clicks. So under the ratio, Giant Reach 2. When he hits an opposing character with close attack after resolutions, you may place a hit character in a square adjacent to Ghost Rider. That could be useful. Pennant Square also means his damage dealt is penetrating. He's got Mystics. He's got invulnerability. But 95 points for 7 clicks that could just be shot through with Pensai is no bueno in my book. Definitely just... I hate to say it, just not good enough. This is probably one of those Twinkie bases you don't want to see in your booster. And now we get to the cream of the crop. Those the pieces I've been alluding to since the beginning. And that is, I'll lump them together because they work the same. 023 and 024. Hell Cycle 023, and then the Motorcycle 024. Both of these look like figures, because they will come in your booster as figures, but they are both equipment. So good job, WizKids, sneaking that in. Did not say we had equipment, but lo and behold, we do have 2. The Hell Cycle, they're both 15 points. They both have the same kind of wording for their abilities. Basically, they are equipment. You equip them. And basically, their effect is, when equipped, you turn them to any click. And then this character, who's equipped with it, positively modifies their speed by the speed value that's listed in the square, which I think is like 1 or 2. I don't think they have a 3 on here. And can use the powers displayed on the dial. And then they also have a bunch of wording in their initial trait or initial part. All that's saying is that if your character drops this equipment, basically it isn't dropped in their square, it drops adjacent. And characters next to it can be given a power action to equip it as if they were in that square. And they also very specifically state that these are not unique. So you can have a motorcycle gang of characters. So first off, it's an equipment that's not unique. That's amazing. 15 points for what they give, also amazing. Like, the point value is great. Hell Cycle, each of them have 3 clicks with powers on all 3. For the Hell Cycle, you could choose click 1, which gives you sidestep poison. Just when we thought the cloak was going away, we got it back in the form of a cycle. Click 2 is hypersonic and ESD. Funny enough, I mentioned earlier I don't like ESD with hypersonic. Well, if you really love ESD with hypersonic, you can just equip it and put it on somebody that has invincible. And then the third click, which probably won't see a ton of play, is just leap, climb, and mystics. Like, so it'll give someone mystics. And it also has, click 1 is +1 speed, click 2 is +1 speed, and then the leap climb is +2 speed. So click 3 might see play if you're playing a taxi that already has phasing. You'd like him to have mystics, and you like just that flat +2. Because, you know, having it equipped to give just a flat +2 is pretty big, especially on smaller maps. Now, Motorcycle is arguably just as good, if not better. Click 1 is charge super senses. Okay. 2 movement, +2 movement on that as well. So you get a charge that has a +2. So remember, it's replace the modify. So you're having your movement, and then you add the +2 to it. That's nuts. Click 2 is running shot and passenger 1. All right. And then click 3 is improve movement characters. It also gives you a free move up to 1 square and combat reflexes. So needless to say, first off, these won't be legal for Pulp, right? You can't do equipment in Pulp. Doesn't matter if they're characters. They're not actually characters. They're equipment. They have the little gear symbol. Means they're objects. They're equipment. Nice try. Just because they're uncommons don't mean they can be played in Pulp. But in Modern, 100%, this would be the cream top of the top. This enables so many characters because right now you can dish out Charge, Ready Shot, Hypersonic, Sidestep, Improved Movement, Passenger. You give so many powers for 15 points. And the cool thing is that when you equip it, which is at the beginning of every game, you get to choose, when equipped, turn motorcycle style to any click. So you assign the equipment before the game. When you sit down to play the game, that's when you equip them. So that means you don't just have to start with Charge. If you're playing a team that's going to be more mobile in your face, maybe you want one of those more defensive clicks. Maybe you want to be on Running Shot instead of Charge. There's certain instances that might be the case. Now, you cannot change the click after you've equipped it. The only time you could is if you somehow drop the equipment and pick it back up, you could choose a new click. Another instance would be like Mad Jim, who could like swap the equipment for something else. And so when you swap it, like motorcycle for a Hell Cycle or motorcycle for something else, maybe you could do it then. But definitely you want to pick up at least one or two. You probably want to pick up multiple because you're probably packing your team out with some of these. Like 30 points for two of these is worth it, 100%. The last uncommon we're going to talk about is the Hand Ninja. 30 points for 6 clicks is really good. Stealth, when Hand Ninja carries one or more friendly characters, those characters can use stealth until your next turn. They do have Underworld TA. Smoke Bomb, when Hand Ninja moves after resolutions, they may use Smoke Cloud as free. Solid. That's really it. They're kind of like a taxi, and that's okay. Like, that's perfectly okay. They have the vehicle keyword, so you could put Frenchie on them and give them sidestep, that kind of thing, or give them the perplex. Oh, I think it is it sidestep, EE, and perplex? I think was the one that he has. Let me look. No, it's stealth. So they already got stealth. So you can either give them sidestep, combat expert, close combat expert, give them precision strike, willpower, and enhancement, or just go for the energy explosion perplex side, which is probably what I'd lean towards. That's not bad by any means, because they already have precision strike and combat reflexes. So Hand Ninja, probably not Modern, potentially in Pulp, because just being able to be kind of a good taxi, good movement powers, Frenchie could go on them. That's great. So let's talk about the rares. The rares are interesting because I think they fall into the category of either really bad or really good. There's not really a bunch of in-betweens. You start out with Dracula at 0.26, 125 points. He starts the game on click 4, which is just a charge one. Steal energy, but when he uses it, he'll pass his line. When Dracula or a friendly vampire KOs an opposing character, after resolution, you may generate a vampire on its starting click in the square the KO'd character last occupied. That's pretty neat. So it's very thematic of him making more vampires. When Dracula damages one or more opposing characters, after resolutions, choose up to 2 other friendly characters that can use steal energy. This turn, they have free, have speed, move. Okay, that's solid. And then on his first 3 clicks, which you have to heal to, or his last click, he has Charge, Flurry, Stealth. Click 1, he's a monster. Like 13 for 5, amazing. Click 4, he is not worth 125 points. He's only got 7 clicks. If you can't get him healed, he can be outwitted. Yes, he has steal energy and he can heal, but the problem is, and how it's always been a problem, he has to hit somebody. Smaller maps, it might be easier, but in my opinion, he really needed hypersonic to be usable. Most of these vampire dials really needs hypersonic. Someone that can get in, bite, and get out. So I'm not really feeling Dracula. Maybe someone goes crazy in Pulp to try him, but no, he's interesting, but vampires just don't work in this because they just cost too much. But if you can get him going, you'll snowball and probably win. But still, he can also just be outwitted. Iron Fist, I do think, is interesting. Iron Fist has willpower. He's a team player. Opposing characters within 4 squares that can use willpower only succeed on a 6. Cool. He has a trait when Iron Fist attacks one or more opposing characters. Modify his attack +2 if any of the targets are multi-base or have one or more of the following traits or abilities. They're a giant, they're a colossal, or they have the monster keyword. Cool. His whole dial is Precision Strike, Super Senses, Exploit, and a special movement power, Charge, Force Blast. Force Blast is free, but only to target an adjacent character. He has 7 clicks, just under the golden ratio at 75 points, right at it at 30 points. I think if he sees play, it's going to be at 30. Free Force Blast is nice. Stinks that it's for an adjacent character, but it's still nice. So, yeah, I could see him being played at 30, maybe to fit in on a Pulp team to do some Force Blast, especially if you run into a lot of rollouts, right? Force Blast just kind of gets through it. So, not bad, but meh overall. Next, let's talk about 028 Zarathos. 125 or 30. Free, choose a trait. Free, choose a friendly character. That character may make an attack, but only to target a character that, since your last turn, KO'd a friendly standard character or damage Zarathos. Neat. It's not like your opponent isn't ever going to attack you. So if you're playing them on a POG team or something like that, where they're just going to keep KOing your figures, Zarathos could be pretty interesting. Like, he just can. He also has another trait. He has the Spirit of Vengeance trait that we already talked about with Ghost Rider. He has a special defense power on click 2 and 5. Stop, and then Invincible and Regen. So stop with 2 stop clicks if you play him at 125. And then he has a special damage power for the first 5 clicks, which is Prop Control and Enhancement. He is definitely a... How would I consider him? He could definitely see play at 30. Definitely. 30 points for a prop and the capability of maybe allowing another friendly character to make an attack is great. Key thing, let me read that trait again. Free. Choose a friendly character. That's it. Like, choose a friendly character, period. That character may make an attack, but only to target a character that since your last turn KO'd a friendly standard character or damaged Zarathos. Did you notice when I read that? There was no indication of the character needing to be adjacent, within range, line of fire, or nothing. So Zarathos can chill in the back. And if someone KOs one of your friendly standard characters, he can just take a free action, choose a friendly character that can then just make an attack. That could be potentially big. Like, that is one of those, once again, noteworthy. Make a note of this character. Because 30 points, that's incredibly... That's very playable. I will also say at 125, that is also playable. Because he has 2 stop clicks. Stop clicks are one of the key factors that get around my golden ratio thing. 2 stop clicks means at 125... you could consider both of those clicks as like 20 points each or something, right? I don't have a math equation for it, but he's not bad at 125. He's just a lot more offensive. He can get into the fray, shoot things 12 for 4. He still has prop. He's got that Spirit of Vengeance thing. So yeah, I mean, he doesn't really get to take advantage of the Spirit of Vengeance part if he's at 125 because he already deals penetrating damage. But Zarathos I would write down. Probably not making it in Modern outside of maybe at 30 points on very specific teams. But definitely write him down for Pulp. I think for Pulp, Cosmic, Monster, Mystical, you can make a pretty scary team with Zarathos in it at 125 or even 30. In Pulp, you're KOing generally a lot more pieces. Being able to give your characters more free attacks is pretty big. First up of the Damon Hellstroms at 029A, we have 80 point and 40 point. He has a Blades Claws Fangs, Giant Reach 2 after he hits. You may generate a Fire Smoke terrain marker in a hit target square at the beginning of your next turn, even if this is lost. Deal 1 damage to each character occupying that marker, then remove the marker. He's got a special damage power on all 4 clicks of his upper dial, and then on click 5 and 8. Outwit, when Damon Hellstrom uses it, you may roll a d6, 1 through 2. 1 and 2, this use of Outwit has no effect. 3 through 6, until your next turn, the targeted character can't use standard powers unless they are displayed on their dial, in addition to the chosen power. That's pretty powerful. That's really powerful, especially now we're getting all these motorcycles. We're getting all this equipment back that's giving additional powers. Also, standard powers displayed on their dial. That means if a character uses a lot of special powers, they would not get that. So, this is another noteworthy one. It is a 66% chance of hitting that, because you do have to roll 3 through 6. Doubtful he gets played at 80. Maybe he gets played at 40. But 40 points for that special outwit is probably not worth it. Probably not in Modern, probably not in Pulp, to be honest. I mean, it's interesting, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I don't think you're probably reaching, but it is noteworthy to think about if things get out of hand. The Prime Damon Hellstrom, 100.65. Damage dealt to this is a trait. Damage dealt to opposing characters within range and line of fire is penetrating. So that means anybody that attacks deals penetrating. That's pretty nice. Damon Hellstrom only takes damage from attacks. Okay, neat. So it gets around poison or mystic, stuff like that. Special attack power, energy, explosion, quake, giant reach. Neat. And then he has a special damage power, his whole dial, range combat expert when Damon Hellstrom hits. This is once again the fire smoke terrain marker where they deal 1 damage at the beginning of their next turn. It's kind of a meh prime when you consider primes. Probably not playable in Modern. If you really need penetrating, like if penetrating damage really needs to be included on teams in Pulp, then maybe. But he also can just be taken out very quickly. He does not have much in the way of defensive powers. So you are probably not reaching for the Prime. Well, you can't play him in Pulp anyway because he's a Prime. So probably not reaching for this Prime, unfortunately. Blackheart's back. This time is a rare. 100 points, 50 points. Neither within the golden ratio. Free. Choose up to 2 adjacent friendly characters with the monster or mystical keyword. Place Blackheart in a square of hidden terrain within range. Then place the chosen character adjacent to Blackheart. He's got 5 range. I mean, that's essentially an old TK. I like how they're doing this with... They did it with Hush as well, where if they're within range, you can put them adjacent. So that means you can put them on the other side. So 5 range means it's effectively kind of like an old 6-square TK. That's not bad. At the beginning of your turn, generate a fire smoke terrain marker in a square within range. And then you deal that 1 at the beginning of your turn. That's cool. Outside of that, not much to write about. He's probably a little too overcosted for Modern. If you're building monster mystical and you need that TK, he might, like pseudo TK I should say, he might be okay at 50, but even then it's just 4 penetrating damage to take him out. That feels really bad. So unfortunately I feel like this Blackheart is a bit of a whiff for Pulp and for Modern. Because I don't think 100 points, definitely don't play him at 100 points. Sasquatch at 85, 31A. At the beginning of your turn, choose 1 for Sasquatch to use until he chooses again, not in his next turn, until he chooses. Perplex, Prob, and Support. Solid. He's got a special movement power on the first 3 clicks. Charge, Leap, Climb, Quake. When Sasquatch uses Quake, he deals normal damage, and after result, he may take a terrain action as free. Okay, that's interesting. So he can kind of, it's like a pseudo flurry because he could charge Quake and then he could just throw an object if he has one. Okay. The only downside to him is he has only 6 clicks with invulnerability. That is his big knock. You could equip him to give him like shape change or something, but at that point, that's a 95-point investment. You need a little bit more out of your Sasquatch to really do that. He should have been a little bit lower points. But I feel like that's what we see in a decent amount of these pieces, is that we're seeing a lot more offense and less defense. And I'm wondering if that's the direction WizKids is trying to take. It figures now as, let's dial back some of the defenses a bit. Let's focus more on offense, because there's a lot of support pieces that just kind of dish out these cool defensive capabilities. Up next, we have Doc Sasquatch, which is the Prime. Now, I do like Doc Sasquatch, and let me explain. He's 80 points for 4 clicks, so that's like red alert, not in the golden ratio. Like 20 points per click. But when Dr. Sasquatch would be KO'd by an opposing effect, instead roll a d6, place it on the card. If that result is not already on his card, turn him to click 1. Otherwise, KO him. Protected Pulse Wave. This harkens back to old Ironheart or the character's name Ironheart, but it's from Avenger Defenders War. Effectively, it would be something very similar. She would have a token on her, like I forget what it's called, like a broken token or something. And you roll a d6, and if the number matches how many tokens she has, she's KO'd. She's only 25 points. You could knock her out immediately, because I believe she starts with a token. Dr. Sasquatch, first off, you have to deal him at least 8, because the first time you KO him, you roll d6. There's no d6 on his card. So, sure. Worst case scenario, Doc Sasquatch has to be dealt 8 clicks of damage, because he gets KO'd once, comes back to click 1, and then he has to be KO'd again. That's worst case scenario. That's effectively saying you roll a 1 or roll a 3 on your die, and the next time you die, you roll a 3 again. The likelihood of that happening is lower, though. Reasonably, you'd probably get 2 KOs out of it. So that means you've got at least 12 clicks. So cool. That's great. 12 clicks is great. He's got Perplex, traded Perplex. When he uses it to target another friendly character he shares a keyword with, instead, modify all the target's combat values plus 1. He's got Hulkbuster's X Factor, Animal, Brute, Monster, and Scientist. Because why not? Seeing Dr. Sasquatch, he goes up on my list for GCU as a Scientist, because he is just a piece that's just probably not going to die. Your opponent might be reaching for that 80 points, but they still have to deal 8 clicks of damage to him. You can equip him with one of the motorcycles. He is not a giant, so equip him with one of the motorcycles to give him hypersonic, give him charge, because you might look at that leap climb and you're like, ew, but hypersonic, Dr. Sasquatch? I never thought I would be saying hypersonicking Dr. Sasquatch, but hypersonic, 11 for 4. And he has a Perplex. He can just use the Perplex normally on himself to make him a 12 for 4. And he's effectively like a pseudo don't die piece. I like him. I think he's got modern potential for sure. I mean, that's really the only place to play him. He's a Prime, can't be played in Pulp. But I think he does have potential, because he could... I mean, best case scenario, you're looking at what? 1, 2, 6. So 24 clicks, right? Because you put all 6 on him. Maybe 24 clicks, maybe 20. Realistically, you would count for hopefully having 2 dice on him. Is probably what's realistic. Like when you average it out. 2, maybe 3. So giving me 12 clicks for 80 points. Someone who could deal 4 damage. He's got 11 his whole dial. 8 movement his whole dial. He has 4 top dial and then 3 for damage. So I don't hate that. And he has Outwit too. So I definitely try to pick up a Dr. Sasquatch. I think he's got potential. Ghost Rider at 70 points. He has the Spirit of Vengeance, which we've talked about. He is 7 clicks long, so right at the ratio. Precision Strike, special attack power, Precision Strike, Blades Claws. When he uses Blades Claws, you may roll 2d6 and choose one to be the result. And if you do, after results, heal him, the number equal to half the result. That is only on his last 5 clicks. He does have Shape Change, and if he's adjacent to blocking terrain, he can't be targeted by non-adjacent characters. Interesting. He is okay. He's only got charge, but you give him a bike, man. If you give him the health cycle and give him hypersonic, go for it. Like, that's great. You could do worse in Pulp than him. I would keep in mind that whole, if he's adjacent to blocking, you put him on the right map, your opponent literally can't target him. Like, that's big. Being able to just move up, hide in adjacent to blocking, and like your opponent can't target him for anything. And then you just hypersonic in and punch him. That's pretty good. I don't hate it. Not modern. Definitely wouldn't think for modern, but you know, for Pulp, depending on the team, not bad. We've got Death Rider next at 0.33, 80, 50 points. They really love 80 and 50 for some reason. Trait: when a character, friendly or opposing, with the mystical keyword is KO'd, after resolutions generate a Sarah bystander, maximum 1, free. If Death Rider is the only character on your team, on your force, generate a Sarah bystander, maximum 1. Okay. He has a trait: Blades Claws Fangs, or not trait, a special attack power, Blades Claws Fangs, Poison, Giant Reach X, where X equals his current click number. That is only on click 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's okay. 80 points, he really only gets 3 clicks, and it's just Charge Blades, Toughness, Exploit. 50 points, he does have 5 clicks. He does still start with that Charge Blades, Toughness, Exploit, but then he goes into a Flurry, that Special Blades power, Invincible, and Close Combat Expert. So that's okay. Sarah is actually kind of interesting. She is Sidestep, a special attack power, Blades Claws Fangs, Pen Sight. Okay, Penetrating Psychic Blast, neat. And then Super Senses and a damage power of Support and Perplex. So, like, that's really good for a bystander. And that's whenever you take out, or like whenever one of your mystical characters or one of their mystical characters is KO'd. So, maybe for Pulp. Maybe for Pulp. Like at 50. Because if you hit him once and get him to those other clicks, having that invincible is kind of spooky, right? And then at that point, he has like a 5 range Giant Reach. Okay, solid. But definitely not for modern. He could just easily be outwitted and taken out. And he's really only borderline for Pulp to begin with. Up next is Ghost Rider at 0.34. 60 points, 6 clicks. Friendly characters that have been damaged this turn have defenders and mystical. Neat. When Ghost Rider attacks an opposing... Oh, Spirit of Vengeance again. And then he has Sweeping Chain, a special attack power on his first 3 clicks. Giant Reach 2, Close. Make a close attack, targeting all adjacent opposing characters instead of a normal damage. Roll a d6 and divide damage equal to the result among all hit characters. So he can kind of run up, hit everyone, roll blades, and then you just divide the damage between everybody. Problem with that is that it's not blades. He has a 3 damage. So if you roll that 1, it's a 1. It's not a 2. It's not blades. It's whatever you roll, you divide among the characters. He's also only toughness. That's kind of it for his defensive power. That's not great. He could just kind of get shot and then taken down to his Plasticity trait, which isn't great. It's just Plasticity. The last 3 clicks are Plasticity, Blades, and Super Senses, which isn't great. Now he has a 19 defense with defenders, so that is something to note. For 60 points, that's not bad. But it's also not great. So definitely not in Modern. Maybe, no, I would say probably not in Pulp either. This next piece, we've got 3 left, and these next 3 are definitely interesting. We've got Moon Knight for 65, who has great keywords: Avengers, Defenders, Heroes for Hire, Marvel Knights, Detective, Mystical Vehicle, Warrior. He is the first piece we've gotten that has the pilot trait. I think I talked about the pilot trait last time. I'll mention it again. He has Pilot, Moon Knight, Marvel Knights. When revealing your force, you may choose a single base character on your sideline that is named Moon Knight or has the Marvel Knights keyword. So remember, single base, and it has to have be named Moon Knight or has the Marvel Knights keyword. Turn him to any click. Moon Knight can use the standard attack and damage powers displayed on that character's dial. When Moon Knight is KO'd, before removing him, generate the chosen character from your sideline on its last non-KO click. It can't be healed or replaced, and isn't scored when KO'd. Protected Pulse Wave. Cool. So you can pop out a Moon Knight, pop out a Marvel Knight when he's KO'd, and just they can make an attack and do something. He also has the Moon trait, though his is different, powered by Khonshu. At the beginning of your turn, roll a d6 for all friendly characters with the Moon trait. 1 through 2. 1 and 2 is Empower, 3 and 4 is Enhancement, 5 and 6 is Prob. Cool. And he also has Perplex and Shape Change. So, solid defense, solid support powers. He is a team player. Running shot, 11 for 3. Definitely could see play in Pulp, depending on who you put on him, because you could give him, more attacking powers. I could go through the pilot list. I might do a pilot tier maker at some point, just to go through all the potential pilots. But since there's not many pilots in Pulp, Moon Knight has to go on the potential list for Pulp. He just has to. Orb, I think, is hilarious. Orb is 45 points for 7 clicks. Orb's attack rolls of Snake Eyes, 1/1, are critical hits instead of critical misses. When Orb attacks, you may replace 1 die in his attack roll with 1. Once per game, you may choose that a friendly character's critical miss become a critical hit. If you do, Orb can't use this trait this game. Cool, so he can just save you out of a critical miss, but he loses that cool trait. He does have a trait, Charge, Flurry, but only if Orb crossed the rim of elevated terrain this turn. He can obviously move through elevated outdoor blocking and move through characters. He still has to break away, but he can move through them. When Orb attacks, modify his attack +1 for each of the following he moved through this turn: hindering terrain, blocking, and characters. So if he just kind of stunts over, he gets bonuses to his attack. Not bad. All of it's not bad. Like, all of it is great. He is borderline for Modern. That whole 1 thing is interesting. Protects you against 1s. It's interesting. I think where he sees the most play is Pulp. Because unfortunately, just as we lost his enabler, guess who comes roaring back in? The bane of all Pulp kind, Mr. Sinister. Because remember, Mr. Sinister did not rotate. Mr. Sinister's still here. The reason why he is not as prevalent, or going to be prevalent, is because he lost Moira. Moira was a instant first turn. Here's a rally die. Have fun, Mr. Sinister. But she's gone. Keep in mind, his rally die is a 1. So anytime you have a friendly attack roll that has a 1 in it, you get a rally die. Orb can just force himself to have a 1. So he can force Mr. Sinister to have a rally die. Now he has to go make an attack, so it's not nearly as enabling as Moira. Like, Orb has to get up there and try to make an attack. But as soon as he tries to make an attack at all, it's guaranteed Sinister will have a rally die. So just keep that in mind. I think that's what's going to enable Orb to be, because he's already good on his own. That's what's going to enable him to be even better. If it's any consolation, they do not share a keyword. So they would have to be non-themed. So take that as you will. The last rare we're going to talk about today, the last figure we're going to talk about today is Elektra. Elektra has the pilot trait, 80 points. She is pilot this time for Elektra, Daredevil, and Martial Artist. Cool. She also has free action as a trait. Turn the character chosen for Elektra's pilot trait to a different click. So depending on who you choose, Elektra, Daredevil, Martial Artist is pretty big. If I'm looking at Martial Artist, I mean, you've got Batman, you've got Assassin, all the assassins from Notorious, essentially, a whole bunch of Batman. Bullseye, Matt Murdock. I'm looking primarily at Pulp related. You got Punisher. You've got you just got Daredevil plain out. Batman Team Up has Deathstroke, which unfortunately Deathstroke you can't get the Pulse Wave off of because it's a special power and you only get standard powers. But you get Shape Change from him. You can turn him at any click and get Blade Shape Change. There's a lot of options you can go down with Elektra, and I like that. Options is great. 8 clicks for 80 points is not bad. She has Hypersonic Stealth, her whole dial, and Team Player. She starts out as a 12 for 3 with Close Combat Expert. The 12 for 3 is including the Close Combat Expert, I should say. So, Elektra, definitely in there for Pulp. I think you could see her definitely played. Because the pilot capability means that she has that, especially she has that flexibility to kind of gain extra powers depending on the circumstances. And that's where I saw the most success in Pulp. And that's why my team, Daniel Powell won, or came in second, I should say, for the World's Pulp Tournament using my team. And my team was effective because it had a lot of pick a power on it. It had Franklin Richards, it had Valeria Richards. The capability of picking powers when things got tough, you lose your leadership, you lose your prob, whatever, is great. Elektra is like a pseudo one because you're very limited, but you could get powers that you might need in that situation depending on who you pick. So that's going to be great. That's going to be good. So far, thus far, if I'm just looking at Pulp in general from Wheels of Vengeance, I would say it's kind of okay compared to Notorious. Notorious added, I think, a lot because of GCU. It was focused all around that one keyword. That's okay. That was great. Wheels of Vengeance doesn't really have that. There's some rares out there that are just kind of meh. There's some that are good. Same with the uncommons and commons. The best things that we've seen out of Wheels of Vengeance thus far are definitely for Modern. Outside of the pilots, I think adding the pilots and Orb, those are going to really, Zarathos maybe, those are the key things added to Pulp that would really, increase Pulp's potential and the figures that you would see out there. Modern, obviously, Hellcycle Motorcycle, the most radical change in Modern we've had in a long time. Absolutely. You can add in Frenchie, Doc Sasquatch, maybe Orb. Those are Night Nurse. All good figures that will impact the Modern. Maybe not a huge splash outside of the equipment. The equipment will be everywhere. So go ahead and pick up those uncommons. They might soar up to $15. They might be expensive. Don't worry, they're not going to be 20, 25. Maybe a year from now when the supply has diminished. But for an uncommon, because it's an uncommon that's only going to be in the double base, the Tweaky base, they might be harder to find because they won't be in every booster. So make sure you have at least one of each cycle, maybe two. I probably would stop at 2. But if you want to make a biker gang with 3 or 4, go for it. But I'm pretty excited about Wheels of Vengeance. Next week, we will go through the super rares, the legacy. The super rares, the chases, and the legacy. There's a lot to talk about there. There's some very interesting chases, very interesting super rares, and very interesting legacy. This set overall is interesting. I don't know if it's going to be better than Notorious, but at this point, it's definitely not as bad as like War of the Realms. I think a lot of people were equating it to that to begin with, and I think at this point you could just kind of abosh that. I don't think it's that bad. It's definitely not that realm of meh. But hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Whiz. I hope you have a great time at any pre-releases you do over the weekend, and I hope you pull well. And I will see you back here on Monday, hopefully for Dice Masters. Hopefully I won't slip up. I need to record that episode over the weekend because, man, Mondays are just not great for me. But you don't need to hear that from me. I will see you guys on Monday, so have a great weekend. See ya.